So yeah, I'm Hans. The Wall Street bitch is traveling right now, so he can't be with us, unfortunately. But maybe we could do this again another time. But yeah, our podcast is called The Baptized Machine, and the reason I reached out to you guys is because I feel like you were like we somehow just got like 3,000 followers on Twitter out of nowhere one day after we interviewed the QAnon shaman. So I kind of just wanted to talk to you guys about like your process with podcasting and maybe get into like some conspiracy stuff, some stories and everything. But just some background on us is we're friends from since we've been 13 years old and now we're in our 30s, so it's a similar background to you guys, I think. And then also we're called the Baptized Machine. It's not like a religious thing at all. It's just because when we used to smoke weed in the woods when we were in high school, we would say we were working on the Baptized Machine. And then one day the Wall Street bitch called me and he was like, dude, I finally have built the Baptized Machine. It looks like a jet ski and it runs on bricks. But yeah.
I love it.
So anyway, yeah, we usually like to start our episodes off if Joe, you and Ian want to like give yourselves a little introduction, background, and then we could kind of go from there with our conversation.
Sure. Ian, do you want me to just kind of say how we got to this point? Just
Yes, go for it.
So I'm Joe. That's Ian. We've known each other since we were about 5 or 6 years old.
Nice.
And we never really talked until high school. Like we went to the same school. We just never really connected.
You just admired each other from afar.
Sure. We'll go with that.
To be fair, okay, so just to put a note to a point here is that we went to a very small elementary school. There was 4 kids in my class.
Oh my god.
And there was about 7 kids in his. So it's not like we were, not aware of each other. It's kind of hard to miss each other. And like we talked a few times, but it was like we never started like hanging out until high school. And I don't
And Ian is also a year older than me, so he was the grade above me, which I mean doesn't make that much of a difference. But he had his own best friend growing up. I had my own, but both of our best friends ended up switching schools, and Ian and I stayed in the same school. So then we kind of connected through that.
Nice. Where did you guys grow up?
So we grew up in like dead center central Minnesota.
Tiny little Midwestern podunk town, population of about 4,000. Okay, so actually, technically, it's a conjuncture of 2 small towns. And the population of the one that I grew up next to had a population of 300. And then 15 minutes down the road was our bigger. And so those 2 schools just kind of merged back in the day. And my graduating class was still only about 64 people. So this is definitely one of those everybody knows everybody type of towns.
That's pretty low, yeah. We grew up in New Jersey, but we're in Colorado now. I actually visited Minnesota for the first time in like when was that? Oh, like Halloween weekend. I was in St. Paul, Minneapolis area. It's all right, yeah.
Hey, I think you got probably like a 0.5% taste of what Minnesota actually is. Yeah. But good. I'm glad you at least stepped foot in our little flyover piece of heaven over here.
We went to a hockey game at University.
Oh, perfect.
Is it, or what's the school there? Is it the University of Minnesota or the Grizzlies or no, that's Montana?
The Gophers.
Gophers, yeah, it was a Gopher game. That was fun. Yeah.
Good old U of M.
Yeah, so what is your guys' goal with your podcast? Like we started out our podcast just like getting absolutely hammered and then recording episodes. And then one day, like it was pre-COVID, maybe, early 2020 or late 2019, we got John McAfee on, the like McAfee antivirus. Like there's a couple documentaries about him, and then he ended up, I think he got killed in prison personally when he was in Spain, like kind of Epstein style. And that kind of helped launch us. So then, since then, we've just been trying to get like, we talk to people who have lots of followers or people who have none, or we'll just I'll like join like really strange Facebook groups about like people with like clown fetishes and like try to get them on to talk or something, So I'm just wondering, like, are you hoping to grow more? Like, what are some strategies and what's worked for you, if anything, so far? Because I know you guys are just starting too.
So our big thing, we used to make videos together in high school, and then Ian joined the Marines, and then I went off, did my own thing. So we're kind of turning that into a podcast now, and we've been posting since about October. And I think right now the biggest thing for us has just been consistency, which I think we've been nailing pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
We post every Monday and Thursday to YouTube, and
that's pretty good.
And now that we've been doing shorts, and now that I've actually been going through and making sure I do the shorts, we're posting 2 to 3 times every day if you count the shorts.
Are you manually making all your shorts, or do you use like a app for that?
I use CapCut on the computer, and that works.
Yeah, I'm curious.
Really
yeah,
well.
we use one called like Opus, OPUS. It seems to be getting better like every month, but sometimes it just totally sucks. Yeah. Ian, did you serve overseas in the Marines, or?
Yes, I did.
Thank you for your service.
Appreciate it. Always appreciate the support. Yeah. I joined in November of 2016, and I got out in late October, early November of 2020. In that time, I sort of had a what you might call out of the frying pan into the fire experience. I got done with all of my training and all that, and then roughly 4 months later, I was one of the lucky few who managed to get picked for a deployment over to Helmand Valley in Afghanistan. And we spent about 6 months over there from the tail end of 2017 to April 2018.
I heard Afghanistan is like gorgeous, like as far as like mountains go, and like I mean obviously like politically and the turmoil there is terrible.
Yeah,
but like I heard like scenically it's a really pretty area. Like
the socio-political climate leaves something to be desired, but if you look at the natural landscape, no, it actually was quite pretty over there. Now, the one thing I will say is that geologically, the landscapes in the distance, we had this big, I call it could be a mountain, maybe mountain hill. It was way off in the distance from base, so you could see it every time, everywhere you walked, and it was like impressive that, wow, you could tell that that's a big object even for as far away as it was. But then the sad thing is that there was no green. There was no plants, no trees. If there was any sort of foliage at all, it was definitely man-made and catered to every single day, because the only piece of green that I ever saw out there was this little plant that grew next to our dumpster where we had to dump all our water bottles, because you need potable water. You can't drink the water over there. So every day when I'd bring out our water bottles, I would water this little plant, and then eventually that thing grew like 5 feet tall, and I was really super proud of that thing. I was like, wow, look at this. I got a green thumb over here in the middle of just nothing else. And so it's very pretty to see, but where I was in the southern half was just a lot of sand and rocks. So
do you agree with the United States government's decision to send U.S. troops to, Afghanistan and Iraq for as long as we did?
That's a heavy loaded question. I will say it's very difficult to answer that question, right? Because
that's fair.
Joe and I were young enough that I don't particularly remember 9/11. I remember that it was a buzz that day and that a lot of things happened, but I mean, as far as I was not aware of the gravity of the situation.
Yeah, what are you guys, like 20, 27, 28?
27, yeah.
Yeah, 26 for me.
Yeah.
And I will say that I cannot answer about how long we were there. I guess that's always up for debate. However, I will say that I was quite disappointed with the exit strategy and the fact that 13 service members were killed when they were trying to leave the airport is a regrettable decision and something that definitely could have been avoided.
And
personal opinion on my part, not affiliated with the Marine Corps, just going to throw that one out there for the legal aspect.
ISIS kind of took back over too, right? Like once everyone left.
Well, it creates a power vacuum when you leave like that, and someone's going to fill it.
And that's the same thing that is happening in Israel now. So, yep, it sucks. War just sucks, I think. But yeah. Well, yeah, I know you guys wanted to talk about growing up in small hometowns and everything. So I don't know if you have any questions for me about Colorado or New Jersey. Actually, I grew up on like a 6-acre farm in New Jersey and had pet goats growing up.
Okay.
In like a
Almost
200-year-old
sounds so
house. So people normally don't think, but that is also 30 minutes away from Manhattan. And I was
okay, so you were
yeah. Yeah, like I was in 4th grade during 9/11, and like, you know, a lot of parents in my town were people who worked on Wall Street, and actually like a few parents of kids in my school passed away in the towers. Which is kind of wild, yeah.
That's tough. That's tough. I'm trying to think of a question off the top of the head. I don't know. Joe, do you want to maybe start and we'll just kind of describe briefly like the experience coming up in the middle of nowhere and, you know, just kind of our journey as to how we got
also where are you guys now, I guess, because you're not together, so you're clearly in 2 different places, if you don't mind sharing.
So for me, I'm now in Wisconsin. I'm kind of in the Eau Claire, Wisconsin area, roughly. Ian has stayed in the motherland of Minnesota.
Okay. Yes. After I got out of the service, I drove back home and sort of, I don't want to say bounced around jobs, but I've lived within driving distance, about an hour, 2 hours of my hometown. So definitely branched out, but stayed close enough to home.
You're pretty close with your family then, or is that why? Is that what's
I would say so, yeah. I mean, we usually winter times is snowmobiling and ice fishing. Summer is camping and 4-wheeling. So,
yeah,
we stay
busy.
busy.
Ice fishing for the first time in Montana this year. It's pretty fun.
How was that? Did you get to hear the ice crackling?
Yeah, and I was just surprised. We had like one of those really nice like big tents, and like the way it glows and lights up, that like blue light was pretty incredible. Yeah, like I was not expecting that. I didn't catch a single fucking fish, but everyone else did. I did not have beginner's luck. Yeah.
Sometimes that's just the nature of the beast out there. No, what you really got to see are them ice castles, which, for those who are not aware, essentially it's an RV. Imagine an RV. However, you tow it behind your truck, not with a 5th wheel hitch, but with your just regular ball hitch by the bumper. And you can drive that sucker out onto the lake, hydraulically lower it down, and then you go inside and you drill all your holes through the ice that you want. And like my brother has one that has a sliding side compartment to it, so it expands out and you sort of get this little living room around a propane fireplace, and then we can put like a little dome on the top, and like we can sit out there, watch TV, movies, anything you want. Like you can get real bougie with it, so it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, home on ice.
That's pretty awesome. Yeah, we just towed out a sled with one of those like Eskimo like 7 and 9 person tents. I don't know if you know those like red and black ones. Yeah,
the pop-ups.
Yeah, they're pretty sweet though. It's like amazing how easy they are to set up and how large they get.
Oh yeah, and then plus doesn't take a lot to heat them. Like you get a little space heater going in there, you'll be cooking shortly.
Yeah, we didn't even need one because the sun was just out, and it's like they're pretty affordable. Like I was like, man, we have a big homeless problem in Denver right now because we're a sanctuary city, and they're like busting up like thousands of Venezuelans every day from Texas, and so like, you know, which I'm sympathetic to all these people, but we just can't house them, and there's nowhere to put them, and so they're literally the city of Denver purchased ice tents to put the homeless people on sidewalks, and like it's getting pretty gnarly, to be totally honest. Yeah,
that is something.
Yeah,
that is something.
Yeah. Colorado is kind of blown up as far as
can't imagine
people.
It's super warm there either.
Honestly, Denver, like the mountains, because Denver's at about 5,000 feet, and then once you get into the mountains, you know, you drive an hour west, you get to 7, 8, 10,000 feet. It gets colder there. The snow stays, but Denver is like very, very moderate temperature. Like it'll be cold for maybe a week, snow, and it snows, and then it all melts in a day or two. It like doesn't stay around the city really. But yeah, these people are coming from Central America, so they're not used to any cold. Yeah,
gonna freeze them out a little bit.
Yeah. So it's interesting, but I don't know. What other activities are I've always wanted to canoe. I'm a big Whitewater River person, and I've always wanted to canoe the Boundary Waters. I heard were pretty spectacular. Have either of you ever done one of those trips?
I don't know if I did at the Boundary Waters, but I know we took a school trip. I can't remember where, but I learned how to canoe, and we took like a little canoeing trip. And canoeing is one of the most difficult things I've had to learn. I did not realize it was so difficult. Kayaking I love. Canoeing is just a little tough.
Yeah, especially
Kayaking. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry, no, canoeing, especially like when you have like a bunch of gear on it, you need to be pretty stable.
I was going to say that kayaking is you out enjoying nature on the water on a beautiful day. Canoeing is learning what the definition of cooperation is and how short your limits actually are when put to the test. Because canoeing, you got to work in tandem with the guy in the back. And if the guy in the back is going, hey, squirrel, and you're going, we got to get down the river, you're going to be spinning circles the whole way down. We went up camping last year on Crane Lake. It's Voyageurs National Park up there, and it was an 11-mile boat ride out to our campsite. But as we were going out there, you look left on one side, the shoreline was America, and you look right, the other side, the shoreline was Canada.
That's pretty cool.
It was definitely very pretty to look at. You have to be cognizant out there because even though the border between America and Canada is unguarded, if you cross into their waters and then try and cross back, you might have a couple of Mounties coming out there like, oh, where are you going, eh? Yeah, you can't go back across that line, pal. You're gonna have to come to shore. And so you don't want to run the risk of getting the big hats mad at you. But it's very beautiful up there. Definitely some geography that I did not expect to see in Minnesota because it's very rolling, very flat here.
Yeah, I want to make a trip up there one day. Yeah, I recently did a river trip on the border of Mexico and Guatemala on this river called the Rio Usumacinta. And we had to start like 50 kilometers north of where we were originally going to start the trip because the cartel had been kicked out of the town where we were going to start, and they were not allowing any outsiders in because like the cartel had infiltrated the police in the town, and then the citizens of the town, like citizens arrested the cartel, and then they just didn't want any tours in there to just like regulate themselves. So we started north of the town, and then as it was a 7-day, camping along the river trip. And as we're going down the river, the first 2 days, we just see the cartel people going in little motorboats as we're rowing our big rafts. These old wooden motorboats, like 2 cartel guys with old 22 rifles and like 30 to 50 immigrants, bright orange PFDs, just bringing them north through the border. And then they just go to Mexico and come up. And it was like wild. Like we had to have an armed support boat for 2 days. And then once we got to that actual rapids on the last 2 days, there was no one there because they couldn't take their wooden motorboats down it. And that's where we didn't need like any protection or anything. But it was I thought I was going to be in Mexico the whole time, but we ended up camping in Guatemala 5 out of 7 of the nights, which is interesting. And it's like international river water, similar to the Canada thing. Yeah.
Definitely kind of opens your eyes to how different everything operates outside, the borders of the USA, things that you're like, oh my God, you would never see that back at home. You're out there just like, yeah, look at that boat full of people.
Yeah, I think we live in the most comfortable country probably in the world. That's how I always put it. But so where else have you guys traveled much internationally? Or I mean, you've been to Afghanistan. That's pretty wild, but
I've been to a few different places.
Yeah.
Sorry, Joe. I don't mean to kind of yank the rug out from underneath you here.
No, don't worry.
Have you never left the country, Joe?
So I went to Canada when I was fairly young, and then when I was 17, we almost left the country. We went to Puerto Rico, so I mean U.S. territory.
Yeah, that's leaving, huh?
When I went there was one thing that made me mad because I was watching my 18-year-old sister at the time have a drink up at the bar, but I was 17, so I couldn't drink. So I'm watching my sister drink, and I'm just sitting there wishing I had one.
I mean, did they ID her in Puerto Rico? Because I feel like you're in Mexico, you don't get ID'd at all. I mean, even growing up, I'd go to New York City, they get like the hookah bar, and want to get ID'd,
I think they did if you looked suspiciously young.
Yeah, that's fair.
But Ian, take it away.
So I had, besides Afghanistan, just a snippet story for the funsies, because I don't have any actual stories here, is I did get to have my first legal beer in Germany because I turned 21 while we were in the sandbox. And when we were flying back, we stopped at some airport somewhere in Germany, and we had a 2-hour layover, and they told us, they said, if you are of age, you can get 2 beers. And so we went up there and we got to have some actual German beer for my 21st, which was kind of fun. But
what is the sandbox? That's like some military jargon, right?
Yeah. So I guess I should clarify. The sandbox is sort of the colloquial term that refers to the Middle East, just because we've been playing around over there so long. Where'd you go? Oh yeah, I was in the sandbox. It doesn't particularly matter where, Iraq, Iran, Afghanistan, any one of them. It's all the sandbox. I was playing with my Tonka trucks in the sandbox.
I've not heard that one before. That's cool.
Trucks.
Yeah.
But some of the places I did get to spend time in was Okinawa, Japan, and Thailand a little bit.
Oh, cool.
Okinawa was a 7-month unit deployment program. Go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Did you ever meet someone named Scott Turner there?
Scott Turner did. Not that I can recall off the top of my head.
I had a buddy who was a Marine in Japan, probably around. It might have been earlier. It might have been like 2013 to.
Okay.
Something like around, like that's when he started, I think, and then
Yeah, so I was there from 2019 to 2020. I was actually over there when COVID started and all that fiasco. So
wow.
I was part of artillery, and they do.
They make you wear masks if you're like all in the same tank.
Oh my God! It was so. You want to talk
literally about idiotic? Yeah.
Oh, it was pretty. So I was actually on ship when COVID hit. See, Okinawa was supposed to be a 6-month unit deployment rotation, meaning that I was stationed on Camp Pendleton down in California. And then what they do is they rotate units through the base that's out in Japan. So that way you don't have to be, spend 3 years over in Okinawa. You just rotate through for 6 months, come back, and then your sister unit takes your place, and et cetera. So while I was there, we went out on a training exercise in Thailand. And we were coming back from that exercise, actually probably right around this time. Then we got the news that, hey, all of this quarantining and distancing in effect is going on. You guys are going to have to get masks the second you get off the ship. And then you had to wear them literally all the time until you got back into your room. And
that's insane.
even once we got done, because this COVID extended our entire deployment by 1 month. So we spent about 7.5 months over there. And then once we rotated back to the States, we were told that we had to stay in our barracks rooms for 14 days to self-isolate before we could go back and join, the rest of the unit in the base. And what they meant by that was,
how many people are in sorry to cut you off, but how many people are in a barracks room? Is that like just you alone, like solitary confinement, or is it like you can talk to a couple other dudes,
So if you are a corporal and or below, which I was a corporal at the time, then you will have just one roommate. So it's you and one other dude in there. If you're a sergeant, then you can get your own room, but they might double you up if they're having too many people coming in, a big influx. And these barracks were pretty big. I mean, it was probably 50, 60 rooms to a floor, and there were 4 floors on this thing.
Okay.
And so it was, there's quite a lot of people coming in, because we had 4 batteries in our battalion. And what they meant by 14 days in your room was you literally did not leave that room, not even to do laundry. They had a guy
deliver you food, deliver you water, that sucks.
Morning, noon, and night.
You're like, oh, I'm going to go overseas, fight for a country, and then be in prison for 2 weeks when I return.
But come back home. Now, luckily, the barracks, as they are these days, is a little bit more updated. It's not like we're out there like Heartbreak Ridge, squad sitting there in a hooch playing cards, whatever. No, these are actual rooms. And so, you had like Xbox, PlayStation, computers, whatever.
That's
so
good,
yeah, I mean, essentially it was just 2 weeks of turning into a hermit, pull the blanket over the head and do this all day, every day.
Yeah,
I remember we used
to at least had internet. That would be really brutal. Otherwise, I would imagine.
And oh yeah, it would definitely. And I remember we weren't technically supposed to have contact with people outside, but you'd always having a lot of friends. You had friends outside of your unit, so you'd text them. You'd be like, "Hey man, I'm on quarantine right now. If I give you $60, can you go to the liquor store and just get me a handle of whatever you want?" And yeah, bro, I got you. And then they show up with like Jack and Coke or whatever your preference was, and then you'd be like, "Here, man, thanks." And then you just get hammered in the barracks room, and that's all you did for 2 weeks.
That's crazy. Wow.
I think during that time, that was working retail as a manager during COVID. And of course, I had cleaning supplies and toilet paper as my main thing. I'm like, man, this sucks. And then shortly after, like, Ian and I chatted for a bit. And he's like, yeah, I was stuck in a boat for 2 weeks. I'm like, you know what? I think I had it pretty good.
Comparable problems. That obviously you can see the equal between those two.
No, I was a middle school teacher at the time, actually, and I was still charged with leading a like 4-night, 5-day river trip near Moab, Utah, on the Colorado River with 7th graders and like 2 other adults and 27th graders, and I was the lead person on that. And they were like, yeah, you don't have to wear masks on the boat, but we want you to wear masks when you're at the campsite and you're cooking and everything. It's like, what? We're already all together on the boat. Like at this point, like I'm just in. I'm gonna get COVID or not. Like let's just go for it. And so I did not follow the administration's rules with that on that camping trip. And of course, some of the kids were like, "It was awesome. We didn't have to wear masks the whole time." And I got in a lot of trouble. Yeah.
The rule breakers were like, "Yeah, this is really cool," and then then they're the ones that end up getting you in trouble.
Yeah, but I mean, it was worth it. Still, I'm still employable, so it's okay.
You made a core memory for those kids. Yeah. They'll enjoy that for the rest of their life.
Exactly. Yeah, it's like everyone else's life sucked then. But yeah. What else do you guys want to talk about tonight? Any like how do you plan to grow your podcast? Because that's something we struggle with. I feel like we got to like 3,000 followers, and it like fluctuates between like 3,000 and 5,000, and I think like at least 2,000 of them are robots.
I mean, it's entirely possible that it could be bots. I don't want to say it. I don't want to, make you feel bad, but there's a possibility to throw it.
I'm aware. Yeah.
I would say, at least for me personally, as far as growing the channel, I mean, Joe does a fantastic job of putting the videos together for us, and I think that as far as content creation goes, all we can do is really sort of put ourselves in that spot where, what's a trending topic? Have we covered it all? Is there a new thing that we can maybe get the jump on? Hey, is there a different way we can cut the video that might be more interesting? And all you have to do is just kind of hit these little boxes and then sit back and pray that the right viral video hits, and away you go. Like what we just had, Joe, with the Freebird video. I mean, that was really, we did nothing particularly different for that. It just had, I guess Freebird was the ticket that was like, 7,000 people saw this. Oh my God, that's quite a bit different than what we're used to.
Yeah, that was like John McAfee for us. Or we interviewed this one guy who's like a urine therapist, and he just like advocates for drinking your own piss, which was really weird. but then he got written up in like that like news syndication, the Daily Mail, like shortly after we interviewed him, which was kind of funny. So that helped us. But yeah, I think that's been our thing, is like just trying to connect with other people, and just no matter how weird their ideas are, just hear them out and like let them talk and
see what they're saying.
Yeah.
One thing I really like that you guys do on Twitter, whenever I go on, I see you like replying to all these different people, and I think that's that's probably what we
Mhm.
need to do next is just start finding people, even
User
if we
engagement.
don't collab. Yeah,
Yeah,
just like
it does.
talking,
It
building
does take
relationships.
time. Yeah. Yeah, we did make. I mean, I don't know how many people will ever listen to this. So we do have a fake Twitter account. It's called Sarah Hart, and the Wall Street bitch just Googled like hot chick ass and then like pulled an image up and then made a Twitter for her. And she
Nice,
has like
as you do.
she has like 5,000 followers. No other picture has been posted. Like this professional hockey player started like following her at one point. Like it's like so ridiculous. Men are idiots, man. Like it's crazy. And like people on the internet are just so dumb. It's insane.
I can't decide whether that is a testament to the creativity of you two or a severe detriment to the state of internet online culture and interaction. And I feel like it's a toss-up between both, but I can't decide.
Yeah, I think it's probably a combination of the two. Our society is fucked.
That is pretty funny, though.
You just make a fake Twitter with like a girl's boobs or ass and then just tweet your stuff. Probably blow up more.
Just send that out.
Yeah.
I mean, hey, the kids like anime these days. We could throw some anime in there. I'm not,
I do like
not
anime.
opposed.
See what our thumbnail artist can do.
Draw the next one like anime. Oh God, that would tickle me pink. Oh, that would make me chuckle.
Yeah, you should do it. I think anime is pretty cool with the art and everything, but it's what really bothers me about it is it's just like and like all the screaming. I'm like, I can't like it's beautiful, but I can't watch this and relax because they're just like screaming constantly. And I'm like, that's what turns me off of it, to be honest. But the kids do love it.
It's definitely a learned taste, so to speak. I don't know, Joe, maybe you can attest to this. Growing up on the like Toonami in the early 2000s, I don't know if you ever watched much of that back then.
No.
The Toonami had what were some of those shows on there that were really good? Well, I mean, you had Avatar: The Last Airbender, and then you had Ben 10, and then you started moving more into, you get to the late night Adult Swim, and you'd have Cowboy Bebop, Outlaw Star, and some of that stuff coming on the late night programming. And so I think some of that made it a bit easier to get used to anime right away. But I will definitely say that it is I've never been willing to sit in a room where people could watch in on me watching it, or excuse me, could walk in on me watching it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like
100%.
Yeah,
like
totally.
there are definitely shows I enjoy and I'm like, wow, this is really cool. I enjoy this. I like this. However, I don't feel like I could explain it well enough to somebody who didn't know about it and walked in the room and caught me watching it at this moment. That just seems like a bit much. So I'm just going to not tell anyone.
I just
That's
recently
fair.
got done with one, and the thing I love about it is it doesn't take itself too seriously. Like, it has a serious story, but it will just be dumb humor. And one
I've heard good
ongoing
things
joke,
about that, actually.
there's one ongoing joke in the show which is so dumb and why I can't watch it with like the kiddo running around, is there's one character wherever she slips, all of her clothes fall off. And it just comes at random times, and there's no context to it any of the time.
Just whoop, and they're gone. And I think that is probably definitively the worst thing about anime, is that there's some things that you can't explain, which I guess would be a testament to like the artistic creativity that you can take with anime. I feel like is a lot more than like maybe live action movies or even CGI, because like CGI and live action, you have to make it look somewhat believable. Anime, you can do anything you want. You can just say, just because anime. Why does she fall over and all her clothes come off? Well,
wait,
anime.
what show is that? 1 or 1 Plus?
That's from the show Fire Force.
Oh, Fire Force.
Fire Force.
Interesting. Yeah, it's crazy. It is really, because I mean, I don't teach middle school anymore, but I did for years, and those kids like love it. But I feel like it's almost like softcore porn for prepubescent boys.
Sometimes.
Some of them definitely
Not all
are.
of it,
Not all of them, but there's a lot of them that it was definitely an introduction for a lot of young men out there. I will say that.
Yeah,
Ian
mine was
introduced
like
me.
watching like scrambled porn. I don't know if you guys even know what that is, but
No, but I don't know
The
if I want to. But
no,
so
scrambled
this is,
porn is where it's like all staticky TV and like you're trying to like hack into your like
I was gonna
parents
say
like,
that's
TV.
this is
Yeah,
the first thing that came to mind.
that's exactly
Either that
what
or I
it
thought you were
is.
gonna say 35 millimeter projector.
No, I'm not that. I'm not that old.
Film
I'm not
reel.
that old. It was literally like choppy TV scrambled channel.
It was
the yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
there's one anime I want to point out because Ian was telling me about it. I went over to his house. I think this was a couple of years ago, and we woke up and he's like, "I got to show you this show." So right away in the morning, he showed me the anime Gate, and the whole premise is like modern day military goes back in time with all of its like helicopters and tanks and fights medieval
so okay so yeah, so this story, now I'd like to point out that this show does have its handful share of like fan servicey stuff. So as long as you can get past that, the rest of it's cool, because it's literally modern day Japan. This like warp gate opens up in the middle of downtown Tokyo, and all these medieval guys come through, and so they beat back the attack, obviously, and then they're like, all right, we got to go see what's on the other side of this gate. And so they send their Japanese self-defense force through, and the main character is this lieutenant in this forward recon squad who has to go like find out what the heck's going on out here. But the first like 2 episodes are about how Japan established this base inside this gate, and the armies, these medieval armies from like 3 or 4 kingdoms met up, and they're like, we have to drive out the invaders. They sent like 100,000 men, and every single time the shot would cut, and you'd see all their machine guns open up, and then all the tanks in the back would just boom, and they'd blow them to pieces. And so it was kind of like the actual age-old, what would happen if you put modern military against medieval armies? And that was the whole thing that drew me into it. And then I got sucked into the rest of the story. So yeah, I couldn't pass that opportunity up to show Joe.
That's great. Where would you recommend if you've never watched anime and like you have a little bit of trepidation to getting into it, what would be a good place to start as an adult?
My number one is Death Note. 100%. I will recommend that every single time. It's like crime, drama, psychological. And for anyone who doesn't know, this high school student finds a book that's called the Death Note, and he can write down people's names and kill them.
Oh, wow.
In any way, anytime. And the way he doesn't, don't watch the Netflix movie. It's nothing like the anime.
Okay.
The Netflix movie sucked. But he's very, very intelligent, and like how he uses it is to kill criminals, to like get rid of all the bad guys because he wants to be the new god, is what he says. But then the police find out, and his dad is in like the head of the police force. So they're basically working against each other, but the dad doesn't know it, and then they get it just goes deeper. They get the number 1 detective, and he knows who's doing it, but he can't prove it. So, and then they end up working together at one point.
Okay, I might check that out. I might watch an episode of that after this just to see. I will definitely. I just googled pictures of the Netflix movie, and it looks really dumb. But I'll watch the cartoon version instead.
In the anime, like Light is the main character, and he's super smart. But in the Netflix movie, Light is the dumbest dude I have ever met in my life.
Okay. Ian, what about you? Would you agree with that, or would you have a different recommendation?
Now, I would say, so a recommendation for me in a general sense, because I have not seen this one either, but Cowboy Bebop is supposed to be really good.
I have heard of that, but have not ever watched it.
And older animations, Cowboy Bebop is from I think it's from the late 90s. It's the
I
late
feel like
90s.
that was on like Adult Swim or like
Yep,
late night
it used to be.
Nickelodeon or something. Yeah.
Older animes have a bit more of a serious tone to them, and
Mhm.
they tend to take themselves a little bit more seriously. So for people looking for a really good story, I would start there. But a modern day one that I would actually give a good recommendation to is Demon Slayer, which has
I've
a
heard good things.
fantastic art style. Essentially, a young boy, Tanjiro, comes home one evening to find that his entire family has been killed by this demon. Demons roam among the earth, and regular people don't notice and do not know that. You know, they assume that demons are folklore or whatever. And Tanjiro finds that his sister is somehow still alive, and so when he's trying to take her to the hospital, she transforms into a demon herself because
wow.
she's been sort of follows the vampire rules. You get bit or you get hurt and you turn. And normally demons attack any human on sight. Well, for some reason his sister does not, and so he vows to take this journey to join the Demon Slayer Corps to figure out how to turn his sister Nezuko back into a human. And there are some wicked villains that are in this story. I mean, there is what is it? There's one, she's a lady. Her demon has this spider archetype thing going on, and she kills her victims by spider webs through this forest that she controls with her fingers, and then she like yanks back and she'll like break all your bones, twist your head around.
Huh.
But you know, it's pretty wild. It's got some gruesome stuff in there, and I would say that's a fantastic recommendation for a good story. But I would definitely start with Cowboy Bebop just to get the feel for it first.
I think I'm gonna watch one episode of each and then see if what I like the most, and then continue if I like it.
With Cowboy Bebop, I just want to add, I've only watched the first like 4 or 5 episodes. It's like so far there's like no fan service, so if you don't want that, perfect. And it's just about bounty hunters going after guys, and it's very relaxed, but also high
What do you mean by
intensity.
fan service?
Like basically
so, fan service
naked women.
Oh, okay.
Or half naked people.
You know how they always have those very conspicuous shots from like behind the woman at the perfect angle where she's got, you know, half of the goods hanging in the screen as you're looking at the guy talking? That's fan service. It's essentially deliberately showing off the
showing off some, but not the whole thing.
Yeah.
Got it. Interesting. Huh.
It's like you said earlier, softcore.
Would you guys like? Would you date a cartoon if they could be real? Like, 'cause think about it. Like we're not that far from it with AI and robots being built. Like they might be able to design.
I'm gonna come home like Ryan Gosling at the end of Blade Runner.
Characters. So would you date a robot that looked like an anime character?
I'm literally going to turn into the Ryan Gosling meme. Like, you look lonely. I can fix that. Please get away from me. Just like, I'm going to come home and at the end of the day, she'd be, oh, honey, I made you dinner. And it's, you know, that like freaking hologram meatloaf. And I'm like, oh, my favorite air. Just...
So I'll take that as a no.
I think, okay. I'll just say that AI going where it's going, I can see how that would happen. Not for me. Joe, go ahead.
My fiance would not like it, so we're gonna go with a no.
She's not polyamorous.
It's just wires and circuitry and ones and zeros.
It's technically not another human, so you might be able to negotiate that with her.
No, I never thought
if that's so, why are the ones and zeros arguing with me about the goddamn laundry?
It's just like, you know, if she'd let you have a fleshlight, why couldn't you have an anime robot?
You're only going one step further.
Sorry, we can go back.
Maybe a couple, maybe a couple steps further.
That's funny.
Good times.
But yeah, I know you guys normally only do like 20, 30-minute episodes, and we're at 44 minutes. It would be great to do this again when the Wall Street Bitch is back in town too. But any other questions for us or things you want to cover before we wrap up tonight?
I guess my question for you guys, how did you guys get started, and like what inspired you to start a podcast?
Yeah, I think we were roommates at the time, and now we still live pretty close together, which is nice. So yeah, I think we got started like right before COVID because we were just like, we need something to do. And then once COVID hit, we really got into it. And then we actually took a break for about 2 years because I was living out in Western Colorado and just not really looking at screens at all for a couple of years. So
Right.
I kind of disconnected from the world. And then I moved back to the Front Range, which would be like the Denver area. They call the Front Range, like the suburb, like where all the suburbs are. And we reconnected and just started to resume the podcast. And we've been lucky to make connections with people like John McAfee, who unfortunately, like I think our guests that we've had on have really helped us grow the most. So that would be like a suggestion, is just try to reach out to interesting people you can interview. Like even just people like one time I interviewed this dude who was just like a miner that shut down all these mines in Colorado, which was like really fascinating. But then also it's like we interviewed a guy who drinks his own piss, or we interview a lot of like crazy Republican conspiracy theorists. Like we've had the QAnon shaman on. We like stormed the Capitol on January 6th.
Yeah.
And people, and like that's where we got our first haters, because people are like, "Why are you platforming this guy?" But it's like,
well,
we're not really. Like he's gonna talk to someone, like if not us. Like
he still has a piece to say. It's interesting.
Yeah.
You're kind of catching different slices of life.
Yeah.
I like
and
that.
I feel like once you get your first haters, that's when you know you're doing okay.
Nice.
We did get one guy who had a snarky comment. We posted a short about like Ian. We do quotes at the end of every episode, and Ian took one from the Call of Duty death screens. But in a short, I can't really explain fully without it lacking in entertainment. So just kind of did the quote, and then Ian said he got it from the COD screen, and someone's like, saying that quote is from COD is like saying Goku's from Fortnite. So then I went in the comments and kind of explained like, hey, like this is the context. And then he replies back, horse, penis, and balls. I'm like, oh,
we've got a troll, and it was like, wonderful, nice.
And Ian, you sent a paragraph explaining the quote.
I literally went on to Wikipedia and just copied and pasted the text because I felt like being that guy.
That's awesome.
I was like, you know what? I'm gonna be cheeky too, and I'm just gonna copy and paste the text for funsies. I had a question. What was it? Words escape me at this moment. I know what it was. All right,
I have two dogs right now, and one is just farting like crazy. So I got like 5 minutes, so I need to let him out. But yeah, let's go.
Fair enough. All right. Well, quick first one. You're going to do a short answer. How in the heck did you guys get John McAfee on? And second, the bigger one was what provoked the decision to move from the East Coast out in Jersey out to Colorado?
All right. Yeah, so John McAfee, he was dating his wife is in that documentary that's on Netflix. I forget the name of it right now, but her name's Janice. And she was like his wife at the time, black lady who's like a prostitute that he ended up marrying. And so we DM'd her on Twitter, and then she set up the interview with him. And like at the time we had like 50 followers on Twitter, and he just agreed to it because he was taking like every interview. And then literally like a year later he died. Or he got arrested in prison and then killed himself. And he was like big into crypto at the time, and he had a tattoo on his arm that said Schwack coin. And he's like, if I ever kill myself, it wasn't me. I got whacked. I got whacked off. And so, I mean, he was a pretty nutty dude, but also I don't like Wall Street Bitch thinks he killed himself in prison. I think he got like Like, I don't believe Jeffrey Epstein killed himself. I think he got kind of like Epstein because he had some shit on some people.
Right. I remember when all
Yeah.
that was going down too.
Yeah.
So that's just kind of that's why I was curious. Like, how the fuck did you guys get him on there? I remember what he was going through. Like,
it's literally just like lucky, like DM. Like, we've also had this guy Dr. Steve on a couple times, who he used to be on the Opie and Anthony show, which is like a nationally syndicated radio show, kind of like level below Howard Stern, and he has the longest running syndicated radio show on Sirius XM called Weird Medicine, where he just answers like any weird medical, like a dude will be like, my penis is retracted in my body and I don't know what's going on, and then like he'll answer like that question, you know. It's like super funny, like, you know, like, but he's a legit doctor. And so it's just been like we're hoping to get like a Hollywood like plastic surgeon, like a butt lift specialist on or something, and just like talk about that would be good, you know. So like just thinking about like weird niche things like that.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay, that's where that idea comes from. Because I remember scrolling through the channel a little bit, and I was like, you know, a lot of people, you can look at like their videos and the thumbnails, right, and you can just kind of guess like generally, you know, what to expect when you meet the guy. And like I was looking through yours, and I'm like, political discussion. That's John McAfee. Here's the next one, talking with some doctor. What is this one even about? I'm not entirely like the more I looked down the list, the more I was like, I have where like I was trying to find a pattern. Like I felt like
and honestly,
felt like I was losing myself.
That might be a problem of ours, is that like we're like, oh, we're a podcast and it's just everything sexy.
Like,
our tagline.
Like everything sexy.
It's like I wasn't too ambiguous and vague. Yeah,
like it wasn't even detrimental. Like it was just one of those. It was just scroll through the channel, just get a feel for what these guys are all about. And the more I looked, the more like intrigued, but yet like, oh my god, how far down does the rabbit hole go? Like
the first time I told Ian about you guys, because I run all of our socials.
Yeah.
I had sent him the tweet that you guys sent us, like who would be top and who would be bottom. And that's the first thing he heard. And I'm like, here, you answer this, please.
As I was like, just tell him power bottom and nothing else.
No, we just try to poke the bear a little bit, but also, I don't know, try to find the line of respect. Like, I don't want to piss anyone
That's
off
fair.
either, but
That's fair.
Yeah.
That was funny.
Well, I appreciate having you guys on, and you know, hopefully we can do this again sometime soon. Catch up in a couple months or something.
Yeah,
with
absolutely.
The Wall Street Bitch here. But yeah, appreciate you, Ian, Joe, and BS Buddies podcast. And yeah, I'll have all this recorded, so I can send you anything you need to on my end. And then this is an outro song we use by an artist named Pickle Walks. It's called Ohio, so it's about the Midwest.
Nice.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
That's a baptized machine with jet ski that runs on bricks.
I was wondering what that was. It looked like a Lego ATV. I was like, how in the world?
Not too far. But yeah, with the Riverside app, it'll just ask you to close it and then have you download the video. And I'll probably post all this up tomorrow. So thanks, guys. Have a great night. Yeah,
thank you.
Yeah.